other things, but really what I'm proud of is being Arthur's dad. And I know he's very, very passionate about why this journey of inclusion has really been transformative for his son and his family. So if you would tell us a little bit about that, Arthur.
Hi, everybody. Arthur's a 15-year-old boy, lots of fun, great sense of humor, loves NASCAR, plays a mean game, golf, is as picky an eater as there ever was. His favorite meal is Cheerios with ketchup. Right? That comes from his mother's side. He loves animals, and you know, he's just a great kid. And as you heard, he's fully included. This is our third year. We're beginning our third year of inclusion. Before that, we spent 9 years. I didn't live in Montclair. I lived in another town. And when we got the diagnosis of autism, like many parents, we went on a sharp learning curve and tried trampolines, swimming with dolphins, but ultimately settled in on ABA as the approach that deals with autism. And our community at that time was very obliging, put us in out-of-district ABA schools. Now, I'm not here to bash ABA. ABA worked for my son. The first few years, they did exactly what they needed to do. They gave him those foundational skills. He learned how to sit, how to stand, how to fetch, all of those things that ABA does so well. But then there became a point where around 6 or 7, we saw a tremendous stagnation. There was no introduction of academics. We were seeing that he was being taught how to separate various different colored beads, how to put combs in sleeves. And when we said, what's going on here? When are we going to start talking about reading and math? They looked at us and they said, we need to prepare him for the workforce. We need to work on things like how to do laundry. I thought workforce, I had a vision of my kid in a hard hat and going down in the coal mine at the age of 8. And they were talking about things like laundry and shopping, and I thought to myself, my college-age niece doesn't even do that, crying out loud. Why am I doing this to a 7-year-old? And so ultimately, I taught my son to read. And my wife taught him math. And we went to them and said, look, he can learn. And they looked at us and said, you poor delusional fools. Bottom line is, by the time he was 11, my son was heading to clinical depression. He was fighting with us every day to go to school. Didn't want to go. He spent his entire day around other autistic kids, which is fine, except that's the only role models he had. And we saw basically a kid who was destined to drop out and institutionalization. We went and said, we need to try something else. We want inclusion. We've been hearing about inclusion. No, we don't do that here. And you know that's an illegal response, and our choice was, do we sue or do we move? And we took a leap of faith, heard about Montclair, and to the taxpayers' dismay, we moved to Montclair. Now, I don't have much time, but I just want to give you 4 stories about why inclusion has been transformative for us. And it all occurred within his first year, being included in the 5th grade at one of our wonderful grammar schools. We originally put him in the school's self-contained autism class that was in the school. And we said, let's work towards transitioning towards full inclusion. We'll start an hour a day. That was the principal's suggestion, and we'll build up. We don't want to overwhelm him. And the first day we put Arthur in for an hour, he refused to leave. And so therefore, from that point on, he was fully included. Talk about self-advocacy. All right, so now he's fully included. Now, you know, they had, Arthur, as I said, had some great skills and lesser skills, and so just one example of how this can help other kids that are not with disabilities. Arthur was working at a table on, I don't know, double-digit multiplication, something. The teacher had been struggling with the class for some time, trying to do exponents. Remember that horrible thing, 2 to the 2nd power? I've never used it in life, but there it was. They were doing it. They were doing it on the board, and the kids couldn't get it. Now, this is what was the amazing thing. My wife gets a phone call in the middle of the day from the teacher, who's just almost incoherently babbling. She's like, you're not going to believe what just happened. My son, who was not working on exponents, never had been working on exponents, was working on his own thing, suddenly got up and said, I can do it. And he got up and he gave a lesson on exponents. The teachers ran and got the principal. Everybody came running in to watch Arthur teaching exponents. The next story I can give you about a great thing that happens when you do inclusion. I drive my kid to school, drop him off, and go to work. And so again, my son doesn't have any friends. But we're working on that. But I drop him off, and I sit there and watch to make sure he doesn't go someplace he's not supposed to. And I'm watching him walk to school. And I see this other boy come up behind him, little by little, comes up behind him, and gives him a shove. And my son turns around and sees him and smiles and shoves him back. And they shove each other, and then they race into the school. My son was fooling around with another boy. I had never seen that before. And I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, and I cried. It was perhaps the most wonderful thing that I'd ever seen. Finally, graduation from fifth grade. They came in, they sang that silly song by Katy Perry about fireworks. A bunch of fifth graders out of tune singing that song in the car. And then, one by one, they made them get up on the stage, walk across, and take a diploma from the principal, shake hands, and go down. And every kid went up, and everybody politely applauded. Then they called my son's name, and he gets up, and he walks up, and he walks across the stage, and Naomi Kirkman, the principal, who I think deserves a Nobel Prize, hands him his diploma, and he shakes her hand, and then he turns around, faces the entire audience, and says, I did it! And the place just broke into like wild applause. That's been inclusion for us. And for the first time in my son's life, we're not thinking about him being institutionalized. We're looking at him graduating high school, having an independent